So what is going to be done to make sure that the minimum wage gets raised? Well, there are a couple of different options being laid out by a number of people who might be called upon to actually be a part of this process, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, who said that she favors a vote to overrule the parliamentarian. As well, she says, understand the only reason that we're in this mess is because of the filibuster. If we would get rid of the filibuster, then we wouldn't have to keep trying to force the camel through the eye of the needle. Instead, we would do what the majority of Americans want us to do. And in this particular case, that's raise the minimum wage. So she was both in favor of overruling the parliamentarian and also getting rid of the filibuster, because look, we're focused on this particular battle and this particular obstacle inside of this battle, very, very understandably. But once we get past this, we are then going to face an even bigger hurdle of the filibuster for everything else, because this at least is taking place under the umbrella of reconciliation. Future bills, for the most part, will not. And so we're gonna have to engage with that battle. We need to get as many people on the side of overruling the filibuster as possible. Some people who aren't necessarily in the Senate are also pushing for that. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says our two options are realistically this: override the parliamentarian or eliminate the filibuster. Those are the only two paths that we have in order to create substantive change in the United States. And that is what the people across the country want. But there are people who are not in favor of that. Either because they say they just love the filibuster so much and the tradition of it, or that it's just, oh, your plan is too crazy, man. $15 an hour. Come on, Trotsky, what are you trying to do here? Well, AOC has a message for some, like Joe Manchin, who would say things like that.
Not just Senator Manchin, but any person who thinks that a $15 minimum wage is the crazy socialist agenda is living in a dystopian capitalist nightmare. And we should not prop that up. We should not continue that.
Yeah, I think the belief and there are tons of people. Look, there are lots of wealthy people that have no interest in minimum wage workers getting more money. I sort of understand that cruelly and selfishly from a pragmatic point of view. But there are a bunch of people whose lives would be improved by this and other policy changes who have been convinced by the rich to not support economic policies that would actually benefit them. That is the dystopia that AOC is talking about there, and I think she's 100% right.
She's 1,000% right, per usual. Am I the only one that thought Joe Manchin was like the rich version of Joe the plumber? Like, I was like, are they just saying like Joe Manchin, like your average 1%er? I mean, really, that's coming down to what he is. It's just Joe Manchin, we are in a place right now where the right and even some moderate Democrats, which I'll just call conservatives, they are blaming, they're excusing it, they're justifying their reason against the minimum wages that's gonna hurt small businesses. And in some ways, it will be a challenge for small business, but you don't just do one thing. You increase the minimum wage and then you provide support for small businesses. But small businesses are suffering because we're giving too much support to big business. You have companies like Costco already making strides and raising their minimum wage to $16 an hour, effective immediately. So you're telling me that Jeff Bezos can't do the same? Are you kidding me? Kirkland's Signature is beating out Jeff Bezos?
Yeah, apparently. Now, in addition to Joe Manchin, in terms of these potential paths forward, here's a statement put out by the White House press secretary. President Biden is disappointed in this outcome about the parliamentarian, as he proposed having the $15 minimum wage as part of the American Rescue Plan. He respects the parliamentarian's decision and the Senate's process. He will work with leaders in Congress to determine the best path forward, because no one in this country should work full time and live in poverty. Okay, so maybe, I want to be helpful. I want this to be a helpful show. So let's save Joe Biden a little bit of time. Okay, rather than him spending the next 6 weeks with a bunch of like people that barely want to make any progress on this, and then also the Republicans, I'll save you some time. If it's not in this, then you could try to pass it as a standalone bill, and the Republicans will filibuster it, and then you will have to either just back down or try to overrule the filibuster, in which case Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin won't support it unless you bludgeon them into supporting the overrule of the filibuster. That's it.
That's it.
Don't waste any time in Oval Office summits. You don't have to do it. That's the path. Now, we can do stuff about some of those later steps. Joe Manchin says that he will never support overruling the filibuster. Let's test that as a theory. Let's see what Joe Biden, as the leader of the Democratic Party, a unified Democratic Party that has, on the one hand, Joe Manchin's commitment to the filibuster, and on the other hand, all of the promises they've made, their entire political future, and the will of the American people, and let's mash those together and see who comes out on top.
Yeah.
We could do that. That's not what Joe Biden actually wants to do, by the way.
No, he's just fronting right now. He's just going through the motions to make it look like he really cares, and he doesn't. I mean, that's the bottom line. What is the point of having the majority in the House if we're gonna be doing this? Because the Republicans used it to their advantage. They all came together in their crazy conspiracy theories and they said, yeah, we'll buy into this. But yet, we're talking about the Republican Party being fractured. We have a very fractured Democratic Party. And unfortunately, there's a lot of us who have to play into being part of it, even though we don't consider ourselves Democrats, just because otherwise we won't have a say. And so we have to really get together and figure out who we are as a Democratic Party as opposed to the Republican Party. We know they're already off the rails. We don't need any more moderates. We don't need any more conservatives on this side. We got plenty on the other side. So maybe Joe Manchin needs to change his political affiliation, because he obviously is not for the people. I mean, I cannot believe that the people in his state are not backing this $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, I know that the big business in his state is not backing it. And this is a trend across the country and really globally. Workers' rights, the labor movement has taken a real fall. I mean, we are no longer prioritizing the workers in this country. And we are the ones who have built this country. And we will be the ones to continue to build it. We have automation left and right. Target is still charging the same prices when you go in, and now I gotta check my own groceries. I don't even get a 401k or any part-time off. I gotta work there now. The prices are not going down, even though big business is having less overhead. So they want to complain and say that $15 an hour is going to break them. Let the mom and pops with less than 15 employees get a subsidy from the government so they can afford this. It's the same thing for the hero pay. They're trying to put on these grocery stores to pay the essential workers more. Well, the burden shouldn't fall just on these companies. The burden should fall on the federal government. They have the money, we know, because they're bailing out big business left and right, and the banks.
Yeah.
The money is there.
We're gonna see.
Well, John, tell me more about this filibuster, because how can we get rid of it? Is it just a vote? Is it because it's something that has grown into this monster at this point?
Exactly, yeah. And look, we've talked about the history of it and everything, and it's not at all what they say. We can reiterate that at some point. Based on my understanding, in terms of how you would actually overrule it, is every Senate puts together its own package of rules for how the Senate is going to be run, what is going to be allowed, how debates are going to work, how committee assignments are going to work, a billion different things, most of which most people don't need to know. And one of them is effectively the set of rules that govern how filibusters work. It is no deeper than that. It's not in any law, it's not in the Constitution, it's nothing like that. It is just a thing in the rules, and the rules have been changed in the past. In the past, there was no 60 votes to break it. There was no cloture. That is a thing that was added. And why was it added? It was added because it turns out that having a minority of the elected officials able to determine everything that happens in the country is kind of a BS idea. And so they set this threshold. And if you can set it at 60 one day, you can set it differently. You could in fact even set it back at 50 if you want to. So we could actually do that. And if people want to stand up and give a long speech and draw attention to their opposition to a thing, they can do that. In theory, if they were actually willing to do that, we might not have to have this conversation. But the filibuster isn't what it was presented in black and white movies back in the 50s. It just isn't anymore. And so in theory, with a majority vote in the Senate, which the Democrats, if they were united, would win, they could eliminate the filibuster.
As they should.
Now, as they should, and we'll talk more about that. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.